Hi, everyone. Topic of our discussion today is why you don't trust yourself and how to begin healing for sensitive, introverted Black women. Welcome to my channel. If you are just joining, my name is Marissa Price. I am a social worker, I'm a healing practitioner, I'm a freelance strategist, helping sensitive Black women heal, reclaim our power, and build heart centered businesses. And I'll be speaking more about that because often when we enter into entrepreneurship, it is because these environments are not suitable for our sensitivity, for our ability to feel things very deeply, and just kind of exploring, right, through my background in economic development, how we can utilize these strengths that we have to build heart centered businesses and attract our clientele to really change lives, kind of viewing business from a different perspective. So, if you are here to learn more about why you may not trust yourself, you are in the right place. So, please subscribe to my channel. Please like this video. Please comment if anything resonates with you. And please share this with other sensitive Black women, introverted Black women who are on a healing journey of reclaiming the sacred parts of ourselves that this world has told us, right, that something is wrong with us because we feel too deeply, because we experience deep emotions, right? And just realizing that nothing was ever wrong with you and viewing these things as strengths instead of drawbacks, right? Instead of things that, that you should be ashamed of. A journey that I'm still on of unlearning that I need to be ashamed of being sensitive, of feeling things very deeply. So, yes, you are in the right place if all of that resonates. Hello, welcome. Hi, Marie. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. If you're here live, please say hello in the chat so we can say hello back. And if you're watching on the replay, please let us know in the comments so that we can learn from each other. And yeah, the comments on my YouTube channel, Marissa Price Heals, is always a community learning space. I've learned so much from you all sharing your experiences, your stories, and this is really a two-way street. I don't view this like in a hierarchical way of me just teaching, and because a lot of this is drawn from my lived experience, which we all have. So yes, thank you so much for being here. Mara, hey, always good to see you. Thank you for joining. Okay, let me get my banners up. Okay. So reclaiming your inner voice after gaslighting and trauma can be really difficult, right? And it's important to give yourself time, space, be gentle with your process because a lot of these things we're healing from are decades long or old, right? They may be even in the past from childhood. So it's recognizing that some of these things may take a while to really understand what happened to you and then work to kind of build like a mosaic of who you are, right? Even though the pieces may be broken, it can be put together in something that's so beautiful. And you can be transformed in the process, right? It's really about reclaiming those unique gifts that you've always had. And I'll be speaking more about the connections to things like colonialism, right? That have told us that sensitivity is a weakness to be exploited, to be extracted from. And so that's why we often hear this messaging growing up so often, right? That something's wrong with us to survive in these very inhuman systems that colonialism has created. And so there's deeper threads throughout a lot of these things, but we'll be talking about that today in this week as well. Mrs. Dr. Murder, hello. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Thank you. Yes, so my plan is to do like a series this week as I am launching my healing offer. If you are a sensitive, introverted Black woman, I would love to work with you, and I'll link it here in the chat. But I'm offering a breakthrough session, right, to as an introduction to my healing program that I've developed specifically for sensitive, introverted Black women. I am a sensitive, introverted Black woman, and I'm also a trained social worker, right? So, kind of putting the pieces together of my lived experience, of my academic training into this package. And I would love to work with you. So, I am accepting new clients this summer. So, please use this link to book an intro session with me so that we can walk through, right, the things that you are looking for healing with. Hello, good to see you. Good afternoon. Love the hair. Thank you so much. look forward to the series here on YouTube. I appreciate this. Yes. So the plan is to go live every day at the same time this week. So 1 p.m. Eastern. As I said, I'm sensitive, so I don't know if my energy levels are going to permit that, but I'm going to give myself grace and time and work with myself. So yes, you should see a live event here on my YouTube channel every day this week, 1 p.m. Eastern. That is the plan. And I'll be talking about various things as I'm combing through my own lived experience as a sensitive person in a really, what's the word I want to use? A world that does not respect sensitivity, a world, again, that tells us that something is wrong with us, that traumatizes us so deeply. I'll be sharing my lived experience, and hopefully y'all can gain something too. So look out for that. But yes, let's get into it. Get back to my, yes. Right, so what happens when the world makes you doubt your own truth? This is something that a lot of us experience. As sensitive people, as introverted people, we often are very observant. We often see patterns that other people do not see because a lot of people are moving at a very fast pace. Honestly, a lot of people, as we see, don't really care about things, right? The deeper meanings of a lot of things. I know just in the environments that I've been in, that has been a common theme. And so when you do care, it kind of puts a target on your back, right? Because you can see the truth in how things are operating. You can see that things are not right, right? You can see, just going on my experience in a toxic job, you can see the triangulation at place, right? A lot of people, especially as Black people in the workplace, Black women specifically, like to pit us against each other to compete for a spot, right? As if there's just one. And so that's what happened to me. And so you see this happening. And as a sensitive person, right, it affects you very deeply. And the messaging that we're told in this world, again, impacted by colonization and enslavement, is to turn the blame inward onto ourselves. Something is wrong with me that I can't function within these inhuman systems, right? Where no one else really seems to feel things as deeply as I do. People don't really seem to get upset at the things that I'm seeing that are clearly wrong, and labeling them as such, right? They don't seem to be bothered by those things. And so we think that something is wrong with us when really it's the entire system. Right? So to begin to externalize what you're experiencing is so very important to begin healing, especially as a sensitive person. Thank you for this question. What is your definition of sensitive? I've heard sensitive used so much as an insult that I think we all have a different perspective of the word. Thank you for this. And yes, that's very true. So sensitive, so my personal definition, I think, is feeling things very deeply. Things affect me, right? So it can be just a small thing. So my senses are very attuned, I think is the word I would use. And right, the root of the word sensitivity, senses. So I intake things, right? And that's why expression, like self-expression, has been pivotal in my healing journey too, because before, when I was taking on this, as you said, sensitive used as an insult, before when I was taking that on, there was shame around that, right? That I'm intaking these feelings, these thoughts, these emotions, and I feel them very deeply. And then I was suppressing because of that messaging that you just said. So thank you for pointing that out. Yes, it is used as an insult. And one of the videos I'll be doing this week is connecting it to colonialism, right? I've had the privilege to attend, I shared on my YouTube community tab, but Indigenous Voices, it's a 7-day event around the globe sharing about the impacts of colonization. And it can feel so far away. I know this is something I've had to work through myself, that it doesn't matter. But in fact, it's still ongoing, right? It's still ongoing. How did we receive these messages that us being in tune with nature, in tune with our emotions, in tune with natural cycles of living is wrong? Who told us these things, right? Because before this happened, There was a period where we did live in cyclical, right, ways with the land, with the earth. And so being able to feel that and have it labeled as something is wrong with you is a furthering, right, of the message that we receive from colonizers. It's a process of continued colonization. And so I'll be speaking more about that this week. Thank you for this question. iBoat, hello. Yes, happy Monday. Your resident baby boomer here. Thank you for another relevant and timely message. You're so welcome. Thank you. It's always a pleasure seeing you. Thank you so much for being here. Yes. So when you have been gaslit, as a lot of us have, dismissed, or silenced for so long, it can feel almost impossible to trust yourself again. And the key word is again. Okay, because it exists within us. This is not something new that we're learning, right? We're having to unlearn. We're having to shed. And I think it was Empress of Ease on her channel. She mentioned like cobwebs. And that visual has been helpful for me too in one of her videos. You have to clear the cobwebs, right, of oppression off to get back to your core being, the person who you came here to be, right? Because you have been chosen for this experience. And so it's a process of reclaiming your inner voice, your power. Something I just spoke about at the 2025 Job Liberation Virtual Summit for Black Women. Reclaim your power, right? Own your skills, rebuild your self-worth. So many of these systems, especially as sensitive, introverted Black women, tell us as something is wrong with us, are deliberately operating to extract our power. And so it's no surprise, right, that a lot of us do not trust ourselves. That we're now having to do the work, which we should not have to do. But we have to do the work to get back to our truth, to reconnect to our bodies, to reconnect to our intuitions, because that has been intentionally severed because of the power that exists within us. So I think even reframing it like that can be helpful. That's been helpful for me in healing, right? It's not me. It's not anything that I did or didn't do. It's these systems constantly operating as I even look back throughout my own life to extract my power from me. Because again, as we just talked about, right, we see the truth. We see the truth. And in a society built on lies, that's going to put a target on your back. But to know that that's not you, right? To know that your ability to see the truth is a sacred gift, something I'll be talking about this week. It is a pre-colonial gift, something to hold on to very tightly and to understand and be prepared for the fact that people will try to take that from you because it's a threat, right? It is a threat to the status quo. So yes. Okay, let's get into why you stop trusting yourself. And if you have anything to share around this, please feel free to put it in the chat if you're here live, or if you're watching the replay, put in the comments so we can learn from each other. Yes. But many of us were taught that our feelings were too much. Let me know if this resonates. That our instincts were wrong. The things that we felt so viscerally, in me kind of being in the process of recovering my intuition, of reconnecting, realizing how often I was right throughout my life. And when I spoke up and when I said something, people would gaslight me. Right? People would tell me, no, you're that's not really how it is, right? Everyone is doing this. And it's really getting back to the truth, right? No, what I saw back then, what I heard, what I felt, that was real. And again, it often represents a threat to the status quo, to the systems that we're in, that are working to tell us that we're not powerful when we have these sacred gifts that we cannot turn off, right? That's an immediate, like, it proves it wrong. Our gifts, our sensitivity, our ability to feel proves that wrong immediately. To hold on to that, something I've been thinking about, to be able to hold on to that, right? Because I very much believe this is an ancestral gift, to be able to hold on to that throughout generations, and now me in 2025 speaking about this, right? Knowing that this is ancestral throughout enslavement, being the descendant of people who were enslaved, and I'm still talking about this. How powerful is that? So again, your sensitivity, your ability to feel represents a threat to the status quo, to the systems of oppression that we're living in. Good afternoon, Eileen. Yes, good to see you here. Thank you so much for joining. Okay, a lot of us were taught that we needed to defer to authority, even when that authority did not have our best interest in mind. It did not have our well-being in mind. That authority was wrong. It was incorrect. And as truth tellers, so often, right, we can see right through that. It's like, I know that that's wrong. But we're told constantly, right, to just accept authority. Again, it has to go back to colonialism. It has to go back to colonization. Where were we told and forced to accept someone else's view of the world? That's very limited in scope. That doesn't fit with a lot of us. And we're trying to fit ourselves into these boxes that were created by colonialism, right? Trying to fit into a small group, right? Their worldview. When we have thousands of years of knowledge, of understanding of the world, of ourselves, that comes into conflict with this box that we're being forced into so often. And so that's going to create that inner conflict. And something I've been learning about through the event that I shared, right? It's a screening of the Eternal Song. I think it's indigenous voices throughout the world or something similar. The impacts on mental health, which I'll be speaking more about. That internal conflict between who we know we are ancestrally, the gifts that we have, and these boxes that we're being forced into, right? To be palatable, to be easily consumable, to be able to be manipulated and controlled. That internal conflict often leads to mental health issues. And so this is deep. Welcome, Positivity 1990. Good to see you here. Thank you for joining. So maybe you were told that you were too sensitive. Maybe your boundaries were ignored. And you were blamed for reacting, for having a natural reaction, right? Because you felt that, you felt harmed. Something I've shared on my channel before. Our bodies tell us when we're being harmed. It's that simple. But we are taught and we are conditioned and we are socialized to suppress the anger that rises, right? The discomfort, the bodily sensations that are telling us, oh, this is not right. This is not right. I don't deserve to be talked to like that. I don't deserve to be treated like that. And so you see how if you can feel that deeply, that would be labeled as something is wrong with you, because they don't want us to feel that. They don't want us to feel the anger that naturally arises from being mistreated, from being harmed. That upsets the status quo, right? That challenges the systems of oppression that we're operating in. And I have a video too on boundaries in colonialism that I'll link in the description too. write it up. So maybe in toxic jobs, which I've talked about a lot, family systems, you learn that staying silent was the safest way to survive. So I'll say that again because I just resonated. Maybe in toxic jobs or family systems, you learn that staying silent was the safest way to survive. So, this kind of chronic gaslighting, again, it's not just on an individual basis, it's on a systemic level that we're experiencing gaslighting. It doesn't just confuse your mind. One of the tactics of oppression is confusion, is disorientation. I think Glamazini, Rushni Cope, talked about this on her channel, right? So, disorientation, they want us to be disoriented. It's keeping a firm grip on the truth. It's so important. But this gaslighting, it can disconnect you from your body, from your knowing that we all come here equipped with. And again, it's a process of socialization, of conditioning for us to begin to suppress what we know to be true, our inner knowing, right? Our emotions, our emotional responses, our bodily responses to harm, to mistreatment, to disrespect. This teaches you to override your truth in order to be accepted or to stay safe. Right? So it makes sense. It makes sense why you may have difficulty trusting yourself, given everything that we just talked about. If you have had to override your truth, your emotions, your feelings in order to stay safe in a toxic environment that did not allow you to say your truth without retribution, it makes sense why you're now disconnected from your truth. But getting back to your body is so important. And I see, yes, Dr. Davia, good afternoon. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being here. Yes. Yes. SM, hello. Yes, especially the people around you are telling you it's not that deep, you're sensitive. That's it. Yes. Thank you. Yep. And I just shared a YouTube short on my channel yesterday about the importance of really getting into community. If you are a sensitive, introverted Black woman, especially who feels things very deeply, you really need to get around your people, really, because not everyone feels things deeply, right? Some people have cut off their emotions again to survive. And again, within these systems, we tell other people to do that, right? If we've done that ourselves, because that's the way we know how to survive. Again, given the context and what we're living in, right? The history of colonization, enslavement, how sensitivity was viewed as a weakness. It put a target on your back. Something I've been thinking about even being abroad. Seeing people show affection in a way that I've never seen before, right? Because being in the US, that makes you stand out, right? In reading, even going right deep into the narratives of people who were enslaved. When you showed affection to someone, when you expressed emotions, right? That was an opening for someone to harm you. And so it really goes that deep, right? In us learning why we receive these messages, why people are not always receptive to what we're saying, why they're not even receptive, but like antagonistic to displaying emotions, to saying that that actually hurt me, because we've been cut off from humanity through colonization, through enslavement, right? And again, forced to adopt the ways of people who cannot feel this deeply, even if they tried, right? Okay. So, how do we begin trusting ourselves again? How do we begin to come back home to ourselves? So, one of the ways is to start small. So, relearning self trust is not always about being certain, right? Being perfect. Perfect does not actually exist, something I'll be talking more about. It's about learning to listen again. Listen to yourself again, asking yourself, what am I feeling right now? And then you actually have to believe yourself. This can be the most difficult part, right? So telling yourself that this made me uncomfortable is one thing. Something I shared before, keeping voice notes, writing it in your journal so that you can have proof to yourself about what you felt during that encounter, in that situation, in that environment is so important. There's a second part to it. So once you acknowledge what you're feeling, now you have to believe it. Because we've been gaslit so often. And as I shared, this is on a systemic level that we're, as we see it, glaring. We're being gaslit at the moment. And so, of course, the doubt would come in right after you acknowledged it. You brought awareness to how you feel. The second part is believing it, because you might go into the pattern of gaslighting, right? Self-gaslighting. Being in an environment, being in a society that constantly gaslights us. Of course, we would internalize that and do it to ourselves, right? But you can intervene and know that the second part of that is you have to believe yourself. You have to believe that what you were feeling was real. Because there are forces that do not want you to believe that. They don't want you to believe your body. Right? The bodily sensations we get when we experience certain emotions, they want you cut off from that. They do. It's intentional. Because that's where the power is, right? Once you start believing yourself, once you come to the awareness and then you start believing yourself, you're unstoppable. You've effectively resisted, right? So many systems of oppression that are instilling these seeds of doubt that did not exist at one point. And so it's that powerful. Another way to begin trusting yourself again, checking in with your body. So where do you feel your yeses and your nos? Where do you feel your yeses and your nos? This is important. Do you feel tension in your chest, right? When you really don't want to do something, when you really don't want to interact with someone or go into an environment, what are the physical sensations that you feel? Do you feel ease in your belly? Do you feel a sense of relief when you honor your boundary? That is information. That is information and that is wisdom to, again, be aware of. And the second part of that is believe. Believe it's true and believe it's real. Another way, honoring your inner no. So if something feels off, and again, as sensitive people, we have these feelings within our bodies, right? We know when something is something's off about this place, this person. Logically, another tool of oppression, right? Telling us that we have to live in our minds all the time. Is it logical? A lot of us will go straight to our minds. What about all the information that our bodies are giving us? We are taught, we are conditioned, we are socialized for our minds to override our bodies. And what happens if you get back in touch with your body? Right? Through a process over time of re-listening, heeding, right? Trusting, believing the sensations that appear. That is a tremendous source of power in helping you really relearn how to trust yourself again. So, knowing that you are allowed to trust your discomfort without feeling the need to justify it logically. Again, knowing that you're allowed to trust your discomfort, the feelings that come up, the emotions that come up, without feeling the need to logically justify it. Another way to relearn to trust yourself, write it down. Keep voice notes, right? Keeping a self-trust journal may be helpful. Notice when you followed your intuition, what happened, right? Keeping a log for yourself so that you can look back. In this moment, when I was doubting myself, when I was questioning myself, but I decided to trust my intuition, this was the outcome, right? These are patterns that you're observing. And conversely, when you ignored your intuition, what happened? Writing it down, keeping voice notes to yourself, right? Observing the patterns, bringing your awareness to it. And the second part, again, believing what you see, what you feel, what you experience. So as we wrap up today, again, I plan to be going live every day this week, 1 p.m. Eastern, to talk about different things that I've experienced, different observations I've had, realizations as a sensitive, introverted Black woman, helping other sensitive, introverted Black women heal, reclaim our power, and build heart-centered businesses. I also offer business support, strategy support if you're interested in that. Just different topics I've observed, right? But it's important to remember that reclaiming your voice is not necessarily about being loud, right? Or even out loud. It can be to yourself, it can be in your journal, it can be in your voice notes. But it's about being true to yourself. It's about coming back to your own inner rhythm, right? After being told that that rhythm was wrong and that you had to contort yourself into a box that someone else created and gave to you and said, this is the only option. Getting back to your true essence, your core self, realizing that if your voice shakes, it's okay. Courage does not mean fear is gone, right? Because I'm very much even right now, still working through fear. But it means that you show up anyway, knowing that you are worthy of trusting yourself again, knowing that you were never wrong for feeling deeply, and ultimately knowing that your truth is sacred and you always have the ability to reconnect to it. Again, so thank you so much to those of you who are here live. I did open slots for my coaching. Well, I'm actually renaming it. It's a healing practice. That feels better to me. It is a healing practice for sensitive, introverted Black women on a journey of rebuilding ourselves, rebuilding our self-worth, reclaiming our sacred ancestral gifts to be able to feel deeply. Recognizing that nothing is wrong with us, it never has been, and rebuilding our self-confidence in the process. So I would love to work with you. I did open slots. I'm accepting new clients this summer, so you can book an intro session with me here. And I'll link it one more time in the chat. And it's also in the description section as well. Okay, so I think this week I mentioned a few different topics that I have floating around. I definitely want to be talking about colonialism and the link to, as someone mentioned in the chat, thank you so much, for the messages we receive around you're too sensitive, something's wrong with you, right? Kind of isolating because a lot of being sensitive is feeling isolated and marginalized. When you're able to feel things, recognize the truth, the system naturally tries to push you out. Because again, you represent the ultimate threat. And just if you're having difficulty really recognizing your power, just kind of sit with that. You really do. The fact that you're able to recognize the truth in the midst of so many lies, which are on overdrive at this point, that's special. And that should be held on to. That is sacred. That again, that's a pre-colonial gift of being sensitive. Right? So if you're watching the replay, please subscribe. If you are interested in being a part of a community of Black women healing, sharing resources, I have so many wonderful guests that I've spoken with. Exciting interviews coming up in July too. And yes, please subscribe, like this video. If anything resonated with you or watching the replay, please comment below so we can learn from each other. But just know that it's okay to be gentle with yourself. Something I've talked about in a video before, right? Black women don't need more tough love. I'm kind of over that messaging. Completely over it. And just sitting with the fact that you can be gentle with yourself. Even in this harsh world that we are existing in, you can be your own safe place. Hey, Zane, good to see you here. Thank you for joining. Just wrapping up. But I want to thank y'all so much for being here, for sharing in the chat, for introducing yourself so we can say hello. And my plan is to be back here tomorrow at the same time, 1 p.m. Eastern, to talk about another topic around sensitivity, being introverted, the roots of why it feels so shameful sometimes to feel things deeply. And I look forward to y'all joining me for that. Oh, you're fine. You're fine. Yes. The replay is always available. But I appreciate you being here. And until tomorrow, y'all, thank you for being here. Bye.